we watch Dr. Bill Harford stumble through his night of temptation and file it under cautionary tale. A man peers into the abyss of his desires, gets scared, and runs back to his wife. The Christmas shopping ending feels like a bitter joke about the mundane reality that keeps us all in check. It's convincing, and it's wrong. Eyes Wide Shut isn't about sex. It's not even really about desire, at least not the kind we think. What it is a forensic study of how power protects itself. The film's actual thesis is brutal. Desire isn't a feeling you have. It's a mechanism that sorts people into hierarchies. The movie isn't about wanting what you can't have. It's about realizing the can't was engineered. The object of desire isn't the experience. It's access to the room where the experience happens. And access is currency distributed by rules we'll never be told. What we're watching is a psychological thriller. Dr. William Harford, played with masterful, vapid passivity by Tom Cruise, has everything the world tells us to want. Park Avenue apartment, a beautiful wife, a cute daughter, professional respect. His life is a series of controlled, sterile rooms. The film opens with Alice preparing for a party, but we see her through a mirror. Right from the first frame, performance, not intimacy. Then comes the catalyst, Alice's confession. High on weed and resentment after Victor Ziegler's Christmas party, she tells Bill about a fantasy. A naval officer she saw during a family vacation. A single glance that made her willing, in her imagination, to abandon everything. Her marriage, her daughter, her entire life for one night with this stranger. It never happened, it costs nothing, it exists only in her mind. But it's nuclear, because it proves his wife has an interior world he can never access. Never control, never even see. His entire identity is built on being the provider, the stable center. That identity cracks open. If she can desire something outside his permission, then what is he? What power does he actually have? So he embarks on what looks like a parallel journey into New York's sexual underworld. We follow him through escalating encounters. The two models at Ziegler's party who flirt with him. The patient's daughter at the deathbed who kisses him with desperate grief. The prostitute Domino with her small apartment and surprising tenderness. And finally, the masked orgy at Somerton Mansion, the centerpiece everyone remembers. He comes home shaken. The mask is on his pillow, a message that he's been identified. He gets summoned to Victor Ziegler's mansion for a patronizing lecture about knowing your place. He has a vague reconciliation with Alice that ends in a toy store, which the film presents as both earthy and exhausted. This version of the story is satisfying. It's about a man confronting his own libido and his partner's independent sexuality. About the gap between fantasy and reality. About the fragility of trust. It fits neatly into the box labeled exploration of marital dynamics. And that's exactly why it works as a decoy. It's the story the characters might tell themselves, the personal drama that hides the systemic architecture underneath. We focus on Bill's jealousy, his fear, his arousal, because those are the emotions we recognize. They're human scale. But the film's directorial eye isn't human, it's clinical. It's not feeling Bill's panic. It's observing the maze Bill is trapped in, noting every dead end, every locked door, and every invisible wall. This interpretation isn't necessarily wrong, it's just incomplete. The film's central revelation doesn't happen during the orgy. It happens shortly after Bill is already inside the mansion. After a ridiculous series of steps, renting a costume, following a cryptic clue, taking a long taxi ride to an estate outside the city, Bill arrives at Somerton. He's wearing his cloak and mask. The costume gives him a thrill. He feels like a transgressive seeker, someone breaking through to forbidden knowledge. He approaches the gate, offers the password, Fidelio, and he's let in. For a moment, it works. He's inside. He made it. But then, in the ritual chamber, a figure approaches him. Not a guard, but one of the participants. She asks him a question he can't answer. Another mask leans in suspiciously. He's asked, "Who are you?" The room turns. He doesn't know how to respond. He doesn't know the expected reply. He has the costume, he had the first key, but he doesn't have the protocol. The signs that mark him as one of them. In that moment, the entire genre fractures. The psychological thriller about sexual temptation evaporates, and what's left is something colder, a film about class and protocol. Bill's desire instantly shifts. He doesn't want the experience anymore. Instead, he wants the knowledge he doesn't have, the invisible signals, the unspoken language that separates members from intruders. The password became the true object of longing. The orgy is just what's happening in the room the password unlocks. He's not a pleasure seeker on some primal quest. He's a solicitor who got past the first gate and discovered there are more gates inside. He's exposed. A woman offers to redeem him, to sacrifice herself, and he's escorted out. He wanders through the ritual into a sacred ceremony without an invitation, and now everyone knows it. The crack is this: the film stops being about Bill's internal conflict and becomes entirely about his coordinates on a power grid. The question changes from what does Bill want to where does Bill belong? And the answer, delivered not in dialogue but in the ritual's collective rejection, is nowhere near the center. He is an outlier by design. The world of Eyes Wide Shut runs on a three-part machine, a self-sustaining ecology of exclusion. There's no villain really, because the villain is the system's logic itself. First, it's the architects. Victor Ziegler is the clearest example. He exists in rooms of grotesque, sterile wealth. For example, his marble bathroom where Bill revives an overdosed woman, his vast billiard room where he delivers his final lecture. He is closely connected to the Somerton Circle and demonstrates clear familiarity with its rules and power structure. His conversation with Bill isn't a confession, it's a management seminar, damage control. An executive explaining to a mid-level employee why his curiosity threatens everyone's position. Ziegler's power is invisible, exercised through capital and connections. He doesn't threaten Bill directly. He just explains the terrain, the rules, the consequences of violating protocol. Architects build a maze and watch from above. They profit from the smooth operation and only intervene when something threatens the machine. If this feels familiar, it should. Then, the gatekeepers, the middle management of access. The Somerton Guard is the purest form. His function is binary. You know or you don't. Mr. Milich, the costume shop owner, is more complex. He starts sheepish, then transforms when his daughter involved with those tired old men. He recognizes a currency that's more valuable than money, compromising information. He becomes a facilitator, but nervous, always aware his position could vanish. Nick Nightingale, the pianist, is the tragic version. He has a key, location, and a password, but he's not a member. He's a vendor. He plays blindfolded, literally blind to what's happening around him. He sells his access to Bill for nostalgia and friendship, and when the system discovers the breach, Nick is the one who pays. He's removed from Bill's reach and warned through intermediaries. Gatekeepers enforce the price of entry, whether that's money, information, silence, or degradation. They don't make the rules, they just ensure compliance. And finally, the enforcers. The system's immune response. The tall man who follows Bill from Somerton to the cafe, always half a block behind. The two suited men who materialize in his apartment lobby, reading newspapers, making sure he sees them. They're not there to kill, they're there to demonstrate, to make the abstract threat physically real. Their message? You are visible, your movements are tracked, your home is not safe. They enforce through presence, not violence. They translate the system's displeasure into a personal chill. The machine doesn't need to crush Bill. It just needs to remind him he's crushable. It creates an environment where the only rational choice is retreat. The orgy, the sex, the temptation, that's just bait. The trap is the hierarchy itself. What does this do to Bill's mind? It doesn't create anger, it doesn't spark rebellion, but it does create profound disassociation. Watch Tom Cruise's performance after Somerton. The charming professional smile disappears. His face becomes a mask of hollow shock. He's not processing events emotionally, he's debugging a fatal error in his understanding of reality. He's discovered that his identity, successful Dr. Harford, is a user profile with limited permissions. He thought he had admin access to his own life. He doesn't. His world splits. There's the performance of normalcy, seeing patients, talking to his daughter, maintaining his routine, and then there's the haunted awareness behind his eyes, now seeing every corridor and every interaction through the lens of that gate. His reconciliation with Alice isn't passionate, it's a mutual desperate pact between two people who've glimpsed the void. Alice's final monologue isn't about sex, it's about survival. The reality of one night, let alone that of a whole lifetime, can never be the whole truth. She's not talking about fidelity. She's articulating the coping mechanism, which is to accept the surface story, to focus on the immediate, manageable tasks. Shopping, raising a child, because the whole truth of the power structures containing you is too vast and too horrifying to hold in your head and still function. The film isn't showing us something rare, it's showing us the extreme version of a common condition. The cognitive dissonance required to live in a world where you're told you're free while being shown in 1,000 subtle ways the limits of your access. This isn't interpretation, it's the literal text built into light, composition, and sound. Start with color. The secret world isn't shot in lurid reeds of primal passion, it's bathed in warm, saturated gold. The color of Renaissance paintings, Vatican wealth, gilded cages, the aesthetic of entrenched, timeless power. Bill's world, by contrast, is cold, blues and sterile whites, the palette of hospitals and morgues. Even the Christmas lights at the end feel cold, more like surveillance than warmth. Look at the blocking. Bill is constantly framed in doorways, on thresholds, looking in. He's dwarfed by architecture. At Somerton, he's a small dark figure against vast ornate spaces. In Ziegler's billiard room, he sits like a schoolboy while Ziegler stands out and dominates. The camera traps him in static medium shots while the world moves around him. Those famous long takes aren't for immersion, they're for observation, forcing us to sit in his powerlessness. Listen to the score. It's dissonant, spiritual dread. It isn't sexy. It's liturgical. It scores like a ceremony, not an orgy. The diegetic sounds are about exclusion, the click of a lock, rustle of fabric, distant murmur of crowds he's separated from. Even the sex in the film is largely silent, robbed of passion, made procedural. Every formal choice reinforces the same idea. This is about structures, not sensations. Gates, not gratification. We mislabeled this film as a psychodrama about marriage because acknowledging its real subject was too uncomfortable. It's a mirror held up to the non-sexual orgy of access that defines our world. Released in 1999, it prophesies the 21st century actual social architecture. It's not about a secret sex cult. It's about the Ivy League legacy admission, the Silicon Valley invite-only launch party, the hedge fund retreat in Jackson Hole, the back-channel group where deals get made. The password is a referral, an alma mater, a surname, a net worth threshold. Harvey Weinstein wasn't operating in a sexual underworld. He was a gatekeeper in a professional one. The party was a hotel suite at a film festival. The costume was a designer gown. And the price of entry was your body and your silence. The system worked exactly like Somerton. You need something, you're told there's a path, and only after you're committed do you learn the real cost. The blueprint exports perfectly. It operates in tech, who gets beta access. In finance, who gets the meeting. In media, whose pitch gets heard. In academia, whose research gets funded. It teaches us to mistake yearning for access for yearning for the thing itself. We think we want the product, the job, the status. But what we actually crave is the validation of being let into the room where those things are distributed. Eyes Wide Shut reveals that the most potent desire isn't for pleasure, it's for proximity to power. And so, there is no catharsis, no third act triumph, no conspiracy exposed. Bill is simply reintegrated into the system as a more compliant subject. He's been given a controlled glimpse behind the curtain, then gently told to forget what he saw and focus on his role. Husband, father, doctor. The famous final line isn't about sex. It's the thick, exhausted sound of a woman and a marriage coming back to ground after the revelation of its limits. The tension leaving the body as managed reality reasserts itself. Bill doesn't rebel. He capitulates. And now the film asks you the same question. In your own life, what narrative of desire are you performing? Are you striving truly for passion, creation, love? Or is it a meticulously internalized script for gaining access? A script that tells you to want the corner office, the verified checkmark, the right neighborhood, the inner circle, and to mistake that manufactured wanting for a personal dream. Whose blueprint are you following, and who benefits from you believing it's yours? Are you doing the same thing Bill did, just with better lighting and a different password you're still trying to guess? The most successful systems don't control your actions. They colonize your imagination, making you the eager, willing architect of your own containment. We've seen how Eyes Wide Shut exposes desire as a gatekeeping mechanism, a game of access where the rules are hidden and the gates are guarded. Next, we'll examine what happens when someone actually breaks through. The Social Network sells itself as a tragedy about what Mark Zuckerberg lost on his way to the top: his friendships, his integrity, his soul. But that's a lie. We'll reveal how the film shows us that success didn't cost Mark his relationships, it replaced them. Winning wasn't the price he paid, it was the point. Thanks for watching The Prism. Until next time, take care of yourself.